right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started on the next video for our learning of respiration. This is called the mechanics of breathing, and we are going to learn how to read a graph. So I want you to take a moment and look at these statements. It says the following statements are involved in the process of exhalation. What is exhalation? Think back to last lesson. What did we learn? Right. Exhalation means to breathe out. So I have four statements. Air pressure in the thoracic cavity increases. Diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax. High levels of carbon dioxide are detected by the nervous system receptors, and the rib cage moves down and in. The diaphragm returns to normal. I want you to tell me the correct order. Now, before you can do that, you're probably thinking, what is the thoracic cavity? That's just your lungs. Your thoracic cavity is the area in which your lungs and your rib cages are located. So if you have to think about it, how would we know to breathe out? So I want you to take time, and I will give you the answer in the Edpuzzle video. Let's start here just chatting about the medulla oblongata, which is probably one of my most favorite parts of your brain. Now, you do not have notes on this, and that's okay. This is just kind of some generalized fun information. So the medulla is located just above your brain, like right below your skull, right near your brain stem, which is kind of near your neck. One of the oldest parts of your brain. And it controls your autonomic functions such as breathing, heart rate, blood pressure. Super cool. Okay. So interesting thing is your nervous system is broken down into two key parts, the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. The central nervous system is your brain and your spine. Now, you're lucky that most of the things that control all your autonomic functions are located high up right by your brainstem, so that little red piece you see there. So if you were to be in an accident and let's say sever your spinal cord, let's say halfway up your back, your legs may no longer work. Okay, but your heart, your lungs, your swallowing, well, the muscle contractions that help swallow, the muscle contractions to push food around your intestines still works because these functions are found up in your brainstem. So that's why if someone breaks your neck, that's usually why you die. It has nothing to do with the fact that your neck's broken. You can actually survive if you break your neck in certain areas. It's if you break and sever this area of your brain, the autonomic functions. So the medulla oblongata, okay? It's a very cool part of your brain. And I have a video I'll show you. It's not working right now, but I will post it here in a second. So we will be doing a pig pluck demo at some point, so be prepared to see that. I also have a video for it. So let's start with the mechanics of breathing. We are on approximately page 6 of your notes. I think it's not labeled, but page 6, lesson 2, mechanics of breathing. So what you have to understand is that air doesn't just flow in and out of your lungs. Okay, it's not like, oh, look it, there's air outside, now it's inside. We talked about pressure. Pressure has a huge role in that. The higher the pressure on the outside and the lower the pressure on the inside means your body's going to breathe in. If the pressure on your inside is really high, then you're going to breathe out. So there's two muscles that are muscular structures that help this process. The diaphragm, which is just below your rib cage, and then you have your ribs, not your ribs, your intercostal muscles, which are located on your ribs. And what they do is they help with the in and out motion of breathing. So the diaphragm is like a dome shape. If you think of what a dome looks like, it's like, think of a circle but cut in half, okay? And it's a dome shape that separates your thoracic cavity, so essentially your chest, from your stomach or your abdominal cavity. And the rib muscles or your intercostal muscles are found in between each and every single one of your ribs. On the ventral side just means on the side underneath your armpits, kind of just along the side, not in the front, okay? Just along this sides. And they're just on the surface. Now, if you've ever pulled an intercostal muscle, you will 100% know the second it happens because it is so painful. Okay, pulling that muscle means every time you breathe in and you breathe out, that muscle is strained. That muscle has to work. So if you think about if you've ever tweaked a muscle or pulled a muscle that you don't use a lot, but the second you use it, you're like, oh, it hurts so bad. If you pull an intercostal muscle, it will hurt every single time you breathe in and you breathe out. So there's a picture of the mechanics of breathing. You have two beautiful pictures of a rib cage, one that's labeled inhalation and one that's labeled exhalation. Now, imagine this lovely guy right here is your rib picture for inhalation. This guy right here, inhalation, okay? On your picture, what I would like you to draw is just below the ribs, so your ribs are facing forward like these lungs are. I want you to draw two arrows down just below the ribs to show the contraction of the diaphragm, okay? So that's representing the movement of the diaphragm as pressure in your lungs, okay, decreases and air comes rushing in. Okay, so pressure on the outside is high, pressure on the inside is low, in comes air, diaphragm comes down. Now, on the outside of your rib muscles, I keep saying that, on the outside of your ribs, the muscles that are working are the intercostal muscles. So these guys right along here. Okay, what I want you to do with the arrows is draw it up like this to show that the muscles are pulling the ribs up and out. Now, obviously, they're not pulling them up, up, up. They're just helping them spread open a little bit so that the lungs can inflate. So you can kind of see the picture here. The rib cage moves up, and then the intercostal muscles are all expanding, and the diaphragm is contracting and moving down. So it contracts and moves down. That's key to your understanding for the diaphragm. In exhalation, which is over here, it's a little bit different. You now have more pressure inside your lungs than outside. So the thoracic cavity has a ton of pressure inside, and we need to get it out. So what happens is now your diaphragm is going to relax. Okay, now you have to remember the diaphragm naturally sits up and under your ribs right here. Okay, so when it goes back to the up position, it's actually in a relaxed state. Okay, so the diaphragm moves up, resuming its domed shape. That means it's relaxed. Okay, so now this is relaxed, your rib cage, also the muscles on your ribs, your intercostal muscles, relax and they come in like this. Okay. So that's kind of how it works for inhalation and exhalation, how the ribs move with the help of the intercostal muscles and what the diaphragm does. Key here is, guys, you need to understand how the diaphragm works. The diaphragm is essentially that muscle that draws down the air into our lungs. It helps open up that space so the pressure is low so that we can get air to come in. And it is the reason it's the muscle that pushes the air out. So you need to know what the diaphragm is doing. So that now leads us into the story of when we breathe in and out. Now we have respiratory volume. So you know how you breathe in and out. In comes air, out comes dark carbon dioxide. You understand the transfer of the gases into the blood. You also understand what your ribs and diaphragm are doing. But now we need to talk about how do you know how much air you're actually moving in and out of your body. So we do that with something called tidal volume. It is the volume of air that is inhaled and exhaled in normal breathing. There's also tons of other things we're going to talk about, but essentially the first one was that. Okay. There is all of these lovely definitions. You will notice that these definitions are in your notes underneath the graph. So you're going to write them down and I'm going to talk through each and every one of them. Oh, in your notes, it also says the respiratory volume, the amount of air that is moved in and out of the lungs is measured with, I forgot to write that down. So that's measured with, oops, hold on guys, a spirometer. So if you want to, in your notes, add that in. Measured with a spirometer. So when you are just sitting and listening to my video, as you're breathing in and out, that's your tidal volume. You're not doing anything special. You're just sitting, listening. Your body's just naturally breathing in and out. Your medulla oblongata is doing its job, okay? Now, you're sitting there, you're thinking about this video, and you're feeling like, oh, you need to do one of those big exasperated sighs. You know, one of those, because this video is too long, too boring. I don't know. Anyways, that second when you take that really deep breath in, that's called inspiratory reserve. It's the additional air that we can fit into our lungs beyond our normal breathing in and out. So when we take a deep breath in, or when the doctor says take a deep breath in, that's your inspiratory reserve. How much air you can fit in your lungs with one big breath in. When we breathe out all that air, doctor says, breathe out all your air, push all your air out, or that exasperated sigh is like, and you push all that air out. That's called the expiratory reserve, meaning it's all the air that we can push out of our lungs that is beyond our regular breathing in and out. So if you take tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve, this plus this plus this equals this guy right here. That's vital capacity. So vital capacity is essentially the total amount of gas your lungs can take in and move out. Okay, so it's measuring all three of those put together. So if you're blowing up a balloon, you take a deep breath in, put your mouth on the balloon, blow out as much as you can. That is your vital capacity. That is one vital capacity. You take another deep breath in, blow all your air out. That is a second time you've done your vital capacity. Okay, vital capacity is used to measure so many things, especially with people who have breathing disorders such as COPD or emphysema, asthma, bronchitis. What they do is they try to see how much volume your body is moving. Because someone with, for example, COPD or emphysema, they have damaged alveoli, and their alveoli actually can't move the oxygen like it used to. So when you do a vital capacity test, the idea is they can take a deep breath in, but when they try to blow it out, it's like they can't blow anything out because their body can take in the gases, but their elasticity to their alveoli no longer exists. So there's no push to get the air out. So vital capacity measures a lot, and you can use it for a lot of different things. And we use a spirometer for it. If you've ever seen athletes running on treadmills with masks on their face hooked up to tubes, they're measuring their vital capacity, how much air they can take in and out. Now, the last thing here is what we would call the residual volume. It's the amount of gas that remains in your lungs even when you think you've blown out as much air as you can. Okay, so that idea that you've knocked the air out of you. Okay, so it's that full exhalation. Okay, you feel like you can't go anymore, but the truth is your lungs still have air in them. Okay, you have to keep air in your lungs so that they stay slightly inflated, because if they collapse on themselves, you can't breathe. So you got to leave some air in there. So residual volume is just there to keep those lungs inflated. It's not useful for any gas exchange because there's no oxygen and coming in and there's no carbon dioxide being transferred. It's just air that just sits in there that can be used to keep our lungs inflated. So this is the graph that goes along with it. So we're just going to label parts of it. I will use different colors so you can see. So essentially, this little piece right here is your tidal volume. Okay, this little bumps right here. These are also your tidal volume. You can see that right here, tidal volume. Okay, tidal volume, again, when you take a deep breath in, so you're just breathing and then you take that deep breath in, okay, this deep breath, this whole way from here to here, that's your inspiratory reserve, okay? So I took a deep breath in. Now I'm saying blow all your air out, okay? That is your expiratory reserve, okay? Now, the three of these together, black plus purple plus red, equals your vital capacity. Oops, that's not a very good circle. But that's a vital capacity. That's how much you can take in as a big breath and what you release. Now down here, up to about 1,200 milliliters within the lungs, is that residual volume, that stuff that never, ever, ever, ever leaves. So if I'm asking you to figure out the volume of air in your lungs, you're not going to include the residual volume if you're looking at a graph. You're going to go from about here up, because this is where your final exhalation is and your top inhalation. So when you're trying to figure out your vital capacity, you want to go from the top to here. So you're looking at about, we'll just say that's like 5,800 minus 1,200. So you're left with, 4,600. Okay, that's that space there. Okay, that's how much you've taken in. So that would be how you would measure it. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of an idea of what a spirometer looks like. I do have one, and I will be showing demos if we can. If you have any questions, you do need to know, I should go back quickly. You do need to understand this graph and how to read it. Just looking at what is tidal, what is inspiratory, and what is expiratory when it comes to breathing in and out. And please make sure that you understand the role of the diaphragm. Have a great day.